Why did she title this book Things I Should Have Said? She should have titled this book Things I Should Have Kept to My Damn Self. Hello, everybody. How are you doing on whatever the day of the week it is today? We are here for the long-awaited Jamie Lynn Spears book review. So, I gotta be honest with y'all. This book is horrible. It is so hard to get through. Like, I like to read. I'm a good reader. I can read. But it's taking me so long to finish this book because much like Lynn Spears' book, there's a lot of the same things being said over and over. It's kind of dragging on. And even worse than Lynn Spears' book, I know when Jamie Lynn Spears is lying about things. So there has been a lot of buzz about this book on the YouTube community. We had Sloan actually last week interview Alexa Nicholas, who is an actress in the show Zoey 101, which was Jamie Lynn Spears' show that was created for her. And she basically comes out and calls Jamie Lynn Spears a liar. That resulted in then Britney Spears actually apologizing to Alexa Nicholas about an interaction that they had whenever Britney and everybody was younger. So, yeah, lots of stuff going on here. I was going to read this book to y'all. I think that's like probably not the best use of my time though, because it's going to take a really long time. And I've already read a lot of this book, not all of it. This is going to be like a part one, but I've already read a lot of it and I really don't want to have to relive it by reading it again. So I have some notes here. I'm just going to read the notes and let's just like start going through like my observations, like chronologically through the book and what was actually going on as I was reading it. Okay. So, gotta be honest, when I started reading this book, so I have the book. I bought it with my own money before it was on sale. So, I really don't want to hear your mouth about what I do with my money. I understand that some proceeds of purchases of books will go to Jamie Lynn Spears, maybe even Lou Taylor. But for me, ethically, like I felt like I needed to read what was inside of the book. Now, as you all know, the book got leaked. And so had I known the book was going to be leaked, I would not have pre-ordered this book. But I know a lot of y'all come to my channel to get the inside scoop because you know I actually read stuff. So I really honestly, if you leave any comments below about don't buy the book, you're supporting the blah, blah, just keep it to yourself because I literally don't need that from you. You please do with your money what you would like to do with your money. I strongly encourage you to do so, and I will do the same. So that being said, thank you very much. Let's get on to the review. So I started reading the book when it leaked because it leaked before this was actually officially released. So I started reading it. So I don't know if my page numbers are going to exactly line up, but this page numbers that I'm looking at now is from, so this one I'm looking at now is the page numbers, the pagination as it were, is based on that PDF. Okay. I don't know if they match up or not with the hardcover book, but I do have it and I did purchase it with my own money. Okay. So just off the bat, page 13, I put writing style. I can tell JL did not write this, LOL. So the writing style is what I would describe, listen, I'm an English major. I have an English degree. I went to graduate school for linguistics and now I'm a lawyer. So I know a thing or two about writing style. It seems what I would refer to as constipated. The writing style is very stilted. It's very uptight, and kind of unnatural. So it seems like Jamie Lynn Spears probably didn't actually write this, and it was probably like a lot of people writing it, different people's writing styles kind of all mixed up together because it just kind of seemed like a little bit formal for someone who talks the way that Jamie Lynn Spears talks. We know she doesn't have like a particularly high level of education, and so we've heard her speaking on interviews and throughout her life, and she just doesn't talk like the writing style in this book. So I think someone must have helped her. She likes to say in her writing style, she likes to use the terminology, the phraseology, people say, in order to put out a rumor that no one says, right? So for example, people say that Britney and Jamie Lynn are equally talented. Have y'all ever heard anybody say that? Because I damn sure have never heard anybody say that. Miss Things I Should Have Said. Oh, why did she title this book Things I Should Have Said? She should have titled this book Things I Should Have Kept to My Damn Self. But here we are. Okay. So she likes to say, people say, or it's been suggested that, like she uses this like kind of misleading way of introducing propositions so that you don't really question it, right? People have suggested that we were equally as talented. Like, no one has ever suggested that Jamie Lynn Spears is equally as talented as Britney, except maybe her parents, which that would be appropriate. And, maybe Lou Taylor. Like, comment below if you think Jamie Lynn Spears is equally as talented as Britney. And then what do I have here? Page 14, she says, we all felt the stress. Britney finally said, Mama, if you leave Daddy, I will buy you a house. That promise came just at the right time. Okay, so we do have in the book Jamie Lynn Spears saying that the reason that Lynn has her house today is because Britney said, hey, Mom, your relationship with our dad is so freaking toxic that it would be actually better for everyone if you divorced him. And I know you're concerned about money, so let me just buy you a house. So Jamie Lynn Spears does confirm that in her book. Then page 18, Jamie Lynn Spears is talking about Brian, their brother. And she says, Brian discovered that practical hands-on learning was easier than classroom instruction. He was taken under the wing of Britney's management team to learn the basics of brokering deals and managing people. This led to the touring years where the family traveled with Britney in support. So they really build up, and she really tells you, a lot that I don't think she really intends to tell you, which is Brian Spears was being trained up to take over the business of Britney. He was not going to college, right? So the way Jamie Lynn phrases it is like, oh, hands-on learning is easier than classroom instruction, which is true for a lot of people. For me, for a lot of people, it's true. I'm not knocking that or questioning that. But a lot of people would say, well, if you haven't gone to college and gotten any credentials, then you really don't have any business managing a multi-million or billion-dollar empire. But, little old Brian, he's just better at learning from the people directly. And who would those people be? I'm assuming Larry Rudolph and the gang. And then she also says on page 18 that this led into the touring years. And so she's basically admitting here, we all went with Britney on tour and stuff like that. So then Jamie Lynn goes on page 21 on to tell us that she started on the show All That, which was a children's comedy sketch show, at the age of 11. So I think that would have been around 2001-ish. Page 27, she says that during the early 2000s, when All That was shot, Nickelodeon had requirements about continuity. No changes to the children's appearance were allowed. During a shoot, Jamie Lynn lost one of her front teeth. She couldn't have a tooth in one shot and a gap in the next. So someone said, we've got to get a flipper. A flipper is just like a child's denture to cover up your gap. It fills in your gap. By the next morning, I was back on set with my flipper in place and finished the scene. So I don't really care. Obviously, if you don't have a tooth in one scene and you do in another, then people are going to be like, what's the deal? But I thought that was really important because it shows how much pressure Nickelodeon puts children under. Now, am I that sympathetic to Jamie Lynn? No, given her recent actions, no. But if you think about it from the perspective of a child, it shows you these kids really didn't have a lot of individual freedom. They couldn't really cut their hair, dye their hair, change their appearance in any way. And I think that that's something that we really need to start thinking about, how we treat child actors. And she mentions Dan Schneider quite a few times. And so I won't get into the allegations about Dan Schneider. If you know them and you want to comment them below, you can. But she does mention him in the book, and it is very favorable. Now, the rumor on Twitter is the reason that she's being favorable to Dan Schneider is because she's really hoping for a Zoey 101 reboot, and so clearly is Chris Massey. If she's in good with Dan Schneider, obviously he was a creator of that show, and Brian actually served as an executive producer. So it was all a family affair. She says that the show Zoey 101 was actually created for her by Dan. So she says, producer and writer Dan Schneider, who had created the show All That, recognized my talent. That's what she said, not me, y'all. Don't shoot the messenger, as it were. He went on to develop many other projects and ultimately was the driving force behind Jamie's opportunity to get a starring role in her next job, okay? So all y'all who want to know about the dynamics of the relationship between Dan Schneider and the Spears family, well, at least Jamie Lynn, seems like it's amicable, seems like it's a great relationship. She says he actually was the driving force behind her opportunity to get her starring role at her Zoey 101 job. So that was chapters 1 and 2. Now we're on to chapter 3. They're about 10-page chapters, the first two. And it's called Teenage Angst. So on page 31, now this is the PDF. I don't know. It might match up perfectly with the book. The only difference I noticed between the hard copy book and the PDF is that the hard copy book has pictures. The hard copy book has pictures in it. And I don't know if I'm allowed to show those. Yeah. Okay. So this is a really, if y'all follow me on Instagram, you've already heard me make this next point that I'm about to make. It says on page 31, Jamie Lynn says, it was hard for her. She's talking about Jamie and how horrible he was. She's talking about her mom, Lynn Spears, filing for divorce against Jamie Spears at some point in Jamie Lynn's childhood. And she says it just didn't make sense to her. And this part I would agree with. She said it did not make sense to her how Lynn Spears could divorce Jamie because of his irresponsible and neglectful habits, but then rely on him to make sensible decisions about her and her siblings. It just felt wrong. Well, Jamie Lynn, then you are also being logically inconsistent because you have never once ever come out and said that your father was not qualified to take over Britney's conservatorship. But you are saying that he was irresponsible, he was neglectful, he made you have to live in a living hell, all this other stuff. But you can't understand how him being in 100% control of your legal rights is a bad thing. And that's why people are mad at you, Jamie Lynn, because you're a hypocrite. You can tell whenever something ain't going right for you, you can see all the problems, but you lack this empathy and this compassion component where it's like, hey, I wonder if I was in my sister's shoes. I wonder if I was in my sister's shoes, if I would be okay with James Parnell Spears being in control of my body, medical choices, wallet, schedule, security, uterus. I mean, come on, like the list is never ending. And you can understand on page 31 of your book that your daddy was irresponsible and he had neglectful habits, but you've never said, yeah, you know what? Maybe my daddy wasn't the correct person to be in charge of this conservatorship. I mean, you can't even go so far as to say that. And so it's disingenuous and you look stupid. Okay. Page 32. In addition to Dan Schneider's work on all that, he wanted to develop a new show around me. That's what Jamie Lynn says, that Dan Schneider wanted to create a new show around her. After talks and several brainstorming meetings together, Zoey 101 was created. Dan thought I, meaning Jamie Lynn, would be the perfect Zoey. Then 2 pages later on page 34, Dan Schneider was exacting and insisted on professionalism. Now, this is always, okay, listen. Professionalism is a term that doesn't really mean one thing. It means different things in different places. And so sometimes whenever people are saying, oh, you need to be professional, what they're really saying is you need to be something else that's not professional. And so I don't really know what this means, right? She says he knew how to get just what he needed from a rambunctious group of teens who thought that they were all that. And I guess she's doing a little play on words, like all that. Scheduling and getting scenes shot in a timely fashion wasn't always easy. So what I'm going to talk about next is, I'm sure a lot of you have heard about it at this point. Alexa Nicholas is accused in Jamie Lynn Spears' book of doing all kinds of bullying to Jamie Lynn on the set of Zoey 101. Now, Alexa has come out and said that's false, that she never bullied her. And she said if she would have bullied Jamie Lynn Spears, she would have not been working, because as Jamie Lynn even admits, the show Zoey 101 was created for her. The whole entire reason the show got created was so Jamie Lynn Spears could have a role on it. Like, that was the whole point. So Alexa said that's not how it works. You can't bully the main star of a show because they have to be on the show. Like, I would get kicked off the show. I'm not bullying her. That's lies. And again, check out Sloane's video of interviewing Alexa Nicholas, because it's a good interview. So what I'm about to read is a passage from that area in the book. On page 36, Jamie Lynn Spears describes Britney getting Alexa in trouble, or Britney coming to talk to Alexa. So she says, a few days later, after this bullying incident, alleged bullying incident that Alexa says is not true, and so I'm going to believe her because Alexa hasn't shown a proven track record as a pathological narcissistic liar, and it seems, in my opinion, my non-medical, non-legal opinion, like that is what Jamie Lynn Spears is, just like her dad. The pecan don't fall far from the tree, y'all. Okay. So here's the passage. A few days later, a very pregnant Britney came to the set to visit and have a chat with Alexa. Britney asked a PA, I think that's like some type of assistant on set, a production assistant, to bring Alexa to my trailer. I was on set at the time. Alexa, so Jamie Lynn Spears is working. She's not in her trailer. And Britney Spears is in Jamie Lynn Spears' trailer. And she says, hey, set assistant, bring Alexa Nichols to this trailer. Alexa, who was really into fame and connections, was excited that my sister wanted to speak with her. The door was open when Alexa walked in. Britney didn't waste any time getting to the point. Are you making fun of my sister? Telling lies and spreading rumors? You shouldn't do that. Britney told her that she would not keep jobs if she continued to treat people that way. Alexa scurried away from the trailer. After the chat, Alexa didn't blatantly bully me, and once season 2 was in the can, she was dismissed from the show. She later spoke of being bullied on the set of Zoey. Okay, so I just want to say, Alexa came out and said this whole thing was a total lie. Britney Spears has also now come out on her Instagram and said Jamie Lynn Spears lied about Alexa Nichols. So Jamie Lynn Spears has been called a liar by at least 3 different people about this section of the book. So that was page 36. Then we move on to 40. She says, I was hard on myself, ensuring my weight remained low and not making any changes to my appearance. None of that seemed outrageous to me since I was portraying a character who needed to appear unchanged. So that was just like more following that thread from earlier where we really should probably think about what we're putting kids through whenever they're on these shows. Like, again, Jamie Lynn Spears is not particularly a sympathetic character, but there are kids that are not her. And she didn't really deserve that either as a kid. I mean, as an adult, she needs to face her consequences. But I don't know. I think it's kind of weird how we treat kids. It's just like, well, because it's for the movies all of a sudden, or because it's for a show all of a sudden, we're just allowed to like do all kinds of crazy things to them. And it's like, would it really hurt anyone if a kid lost a tooth in a scene and then they didn't have his tooth in the next scene? Like, would it really hurt anyone at the, like, when you're balancing out the mental health of the child? Like, kids lose teeth, you know what I mean? Like, it kind of enforces the fact that you always have to be perfect, in my opinion. But listen, comment below whatever your opinion is on that. I'm not like married to that opinion, which is something I was thinking about as I was reading the book. So then she starts basically slandering Britney. And she says on page 41 that Lynn and Jamie Lynn were living in California somewhere for shooting the show. And she said that she and her mom, Lynn Spears, it's so hard to keep these names apart. Lynn, Jamie, James, Jamie. It's just too much. Sam's everywhere as far as the eye can see. So Jamie Lynn says that her and her mom considered moving in with my sister in Malibu, hoping to create a more cohesive family environment and support Britney, who was having a difficult time. As much as we wanted to all be together, it became increasingly obvious that something was out of whack in Britney's world. At first, Jamie Lynn says she just assumed it was the fallout from Britney's divorce and the media obsession with her. But her normally sweet and free-spirited sister continued to morph into someone else, who was disturbed and paranoid at times. Sometimes she would lash out for no apparent reason or ignore me. So this is one thing that I thought was strange. Jamie Lynn spent a lot of time describing Britney's valid reasons for feeling the way she was feeling, right? She says something was out of whack with her. She was getting divorced. She had just had those kids. The media was obsessed with her. And then she's so kind of tone deaf or like unable to read the room that she goes, she would lash out for no apparent reason or ignore me. Well, bitch, you just now told us 15 apparent reasons why she might be lashing out. Like, is it really difficult for you to understand? Is it like, are you lacking the ability to understand that? Or did you write this just to slander Britney? Because it's only really the two options that remain. Sometimes she would lash. Okay. Invariably, Britney would feel bad and later apologize. Well, you're describing a good person. Britney would lash out for actually very good apparent reasons, and then she would feel bad and she would apologize because she's a good person. So the way Jamie Lynn Spears is attempting to portray Britney is in a very negative light, but if you really look at what was going on, Britney was not doing anything wrong. Sometimes, let's see, as far as I could tell, Jamie Lynn Spears says, she lacked any kind of structure or schedule to her chaotic life. Mama sensed Britney needed help, but she kept insisting she was fine. Okay, it is impossible that Britney lacked structure to her life because people were scheduling stuff for her. Her brother, her sister, her manager, not her sister, her brother, her managers, all the people around her, they were scheduling stuff for her. Jamie Lynn Spears even describes People magazine being called over to Britney's house during all of the divorce and everything. And Britney was like, F this, I'm not doing this interview. She ran upstairs. She's like, who are these people in my house? And Jamie Lynn Spears wanted to act like that was some crazy thing Britney did. Like, she was so crazy. She did an interview with People magazine and she ran upstairs. Bitch, let People magazine show up to my house and try to ask me questions whenever I'm in a bad spot. I'm not talking to them either. I'm probably calling the police. Like, I don't even like them and I'm probably still calling them. Okay. Mama sensed Britney needed help, but she kept insisting she was fine. And if you actually know what happened during the 2004 to 2008 timeline in Britney Spears' life, you know that Britney was making active, affirmative steps to pull back from her family. She was putting her money in trusts that only were able to be accessed by her. She was setting up certain things for her children, and she was pulling back away from the Spearses. And so Lynn, and especially Jamie Lynn, Brian, they all started realizing, oh shoot, we have been living on Britney. And what if she starts taking her money away? It all started happening in the 2004 to 2006-07 area. Okay. So Britney probably was like, no, Mom, I'm fine. Like, I can take care of myself. Yeah, I have some mental health issues or whatever, maybe. I don't know if Britney ever mentioned that or admitted that. I don't know if she even did. But she was like, you know what? Yeah, Mom, like, I'm fine. Leave me alone. So then on page 42, Jamie Lynn describes an incident of domestic assault on her person by Lynn Spears. And she says Lynn Spears had actually beat her with a purse. And Jamie kind of goes on, Jamie Lynn, let me see if I can find that page, if it's on 42, because I thought that was really also, Jamie Lynn Spears describes in this book having dogs. Like, y'all know she like made a joke about running over a bunch of her cats with a Tesla. She keeps getting these dogs in this book and then giving them away and then making excuses for herself. Like, oh, but I was young and I was busy and I was this and I was that. So she's making excuses for why she gives her dogs away. So she's talking about the dogs, a Yorkie Poo, worst behaved dog I ever had. Okay. This is from page 42. The typical mother-teen-daughter challenges plagued Mama and me. We would lash out at each other, and I pushed her buttons when I was particularly frustrated. It all came to a head one day when she was emotionally strained and she snapped. She was angry and yelling at me. But when that didn't yield the desired effect, she started hitting me with a large beaded purse that had, among other things, a camera inside. She repeatedly swung the bag and landed several blows on my shoulders before she stopped. I left the apartment and ran to the shopping center next door to where we live, and I used a payphone to call my brother. Brian, Mama's going crazy. She wouldn't let me call you or Britney. I showed up the next day to shoot the Halloween episode where I would dress up like Marilyn Monroe. While applying my makeup, Mr. Michael, the makeup artist, noticed some scratches on my neck and shoulder area. He looked at me with concern. He asked, what happened here? I shook my head and started to cry. We didn't speak, but he gave me the time I needed to deal with my emotions. Eventually, I forced my feelings down and went to work just like I was expected to do. So if y'all like listen to the first part of that passage, she's saying it was typical. The typical mother-daughter the typical mother-teen-daughter challenges plagued Mama and me. We would lash out at each other. It's like she makes all these excuses for Lynn about how it was typical, but Britney doesn't get the same compassion or understanding. And it's like, Britney had way more reason to be upset than Lynn Spears. No offense. Like, Britney was the whole reason any of these people even are known at all by anybody. Like, Jamie Lynn Spears is only relevant because of Britney Spears. Lynn Spears, Jamie Spears, any of these people, they would all of them freely admit that if it weren't for Britney, they would just be living their lives in Kentwood, doing their Kentwood lives thing. So Jamie Lynn can extend compassion and understanding to herself. She can extend it to her dad, and she can extend it to her mom. She can extend it to her brother, but not to Britney. And it just seems so biased. Like, she seems like a brat who's jealous. So domestic assault. Yeah. Okay. So page 46, she describes cast and crew members passing out on the blacktop where they were filming Zoey 101, which was crazy. People started to faint and ammonia rags were kept on set to revive people. But even on those bad days, we all shared an immense sense of pride simply by being part of the show. Then on page 47, she's describing her struggle and the team, the management team and people that she was surrounded with, not really treating her as a person. She says, I never felt like they were interested in my professional aspirations. They recognized me as a bankable commodity as long as I was willing to be shaped and molded to their liking. Executives were not interested in me. They were interested in the brand of Jamie Lynn Spears. They wanted to make me into something they could manipulate and sell. So it's, again, interesting how she's a hypocrite, because she can come up with all these really profound understandings of the music industry and of the acting industry, entertainment industry, Hollywood, when it pertains to herself, just like a true narcissist. But whenever it pertains to Britney, she can't think of one damn reason why Britney would be lashing out. No reason at all. But the only reason they're interested in Jamie Lynn Spears, the brand, is because of Britney Spears, the brand. That's the only reason you're relevant, Jamie Lynn. That is it. That's the only reason. If not for Britney Spears, not one damn person outside of probably Kentwood would even know who you are. Chapter 4, called Never in the Shadows, which is a stupid chapter because she was always in the shadows. Like, that's a stupid chapter, and that's a stupid title to name your chapter because you're always in the shadows, but like, go off, queen. Okay, page 58, she's describing December 2003. She said, my family spent Christmas that year in Kentwood. My sister surprised Mama with a new Mercedes. On Christmas Eve, Britney and Brian took the car and went out partying, which is normal. Britney was like in her early to mid 20s. Like, okay, they took the car and went out. Like, that's normal. Don't we all do that when we're all back in our hometown? We like go out to the old bars and stuff. Like, she went out partying. Like, bitch, calm down. What was your dad doing in Vegas every night with all those women and other things? Okay. Britney was looking to party away the pain of her breakup with Justin, a totally normal thing to do for a 20-something-year-old woman. They caught up with Jason Alexander, an old friend from town. Jason and Britney grew up together, but went to separate schools. The story goes that as a toddler in daycare, Jason was bullying a classmate. 4-year-old Britney intervened and beat him up, which I believe. Good job, Britney. 59. Britney wanted to be anywhere but with us. This is the next page. It's like 2003. So she's literally like 21 years old, like literally in that age range. Wouldn't all of us go party away the pain? Like, that's like a totally normal thing to do. And so they caught up with Jason Alexander. This is on the heels of the breakup. Now, this is allegedly December 2003, but Britney and Justin broke up, I believe, in 2002. So I think Jamie Lynn Spears might got her timeline wrong. Comment below if you're more familiar with the timeline than me, but I'm pretty sure they broke up in 2002. So this would have been like more than a year after they broke up, if the timeline that I remember is correct. But y'all correct me in the comments below. I might have it wrong. So it's Christmas Eve. It's 2003, maybe 2002. Jason Alexander and meets up with Britney and Brian. They all go out. She wanted to be anywhere but with us, Jamie Lynn says. She wanted to be anywhere but with us, which is normal for a 21-year-old woman. This is another thing. Jamie Lynn Spears talks the whole time about how Britney was like a second mother to her. And I don't know if y'all have watched Disney's Encanto. If you have not, you should definitely do it right now. It's on Disney Plus. Pause this video, go watch it. But there's this notion that the older sister always has to be a little bit more than just a sister. I'm an older sister, so I take this real personally. I'm an oldest sister. So I have 2 younger sisters, and they're lovely and wonderful, and I love them, and we have really good relationship, and they would never, ever write a book like this about me because they actually like me. But I also had to step into this sort of second parent role as a big sister whenever my parents divorced. And even to this day, my sisters, who are 4 and 8 years younger than me, they call me for advice on stuff. And Jamie Lynn describes a similar situation with Britney, where Britney was kind of like a second mother to her. But then she kind of starts getting bitter when Britney doesn't want to be her second mother. Once Britney starts getting a little more independent, 20s, late teens, early 20s, she starts to want to go out with her friends. She wants to drink. She wants to do stuff she's legally, constitutionally entitled to do. And Jamie Lynn is just throwing a fit about it the whole book. She was acting different. She wasn't wanting to hang out with us no more. She was going partying. I hated it when Britney wouldn't be the same as she was my mama in the rainforest and zillion baby. You know what I mean? Like, chill out, bitch. Like, Britney did not sign up to be your mother. She did not give birth to you. But the whole book, Jamie Lynn Spears is salty AF because Britney isn't doting over her like a little kid anymore. And you know what? Lynn had probably started acting a little bratty by that point. Britney was probably going to want to be around her because she's a bad person. She has a bad and nasty, disgusting attitude. And if you look at how Britney talks about Jamie Lynn Spears on her Instagram, then I think that is probably what was going on. After years of making me a priority and spending time together, my sister was now moving on without me. I felt like I was Woody from Toy Story. I had been her favorite until I was replaced by her version of Buzz Lightyear. And I just wrote, like, in my notes to myself, okay, so Britney never asked to be your mom, and she wants to do something by herself, and you're being a brat on your free vacation? Like, what? So they all went to some tropical place. It wasn't Vegas. It was some tropical vacation. Britney Spears flew them all. Lynn, Jamie Lynn, bunch of their cousins, everybody. They're all on vacation. And then when they're on vacation, Britney wanted to go hang out with other people and like not be all up Jamie Lynn Spears. But the partying continued that week. We landed back at the private airport in Hammond, Louisiana on New Year's Eve. And as everyone but Britney and Laura Lynn exited the plane, Jason and a few of their friends got on the plane in Hammond, Louisiana to fly to Las Vegas for New Year's, which sounds fun. Imagine you're Britney Spears. You're at the height of your fame. You're a millionaire. You just went on a family vacation to some tropical place, paid for everybody's vacation. Now you just want to go celebrate New Year's in Las Vegas. Jamie Lynn Spears is acting like this is some kind of bad thing. I just knew this was a bad idea, she says. Something was way off with her. The last thing I said before she left was, "Now don't go and marry Jason while you're there, Britney." She rolled her eyes at me and said the equivalent of, "As if." But sure enough, within hours, we got word that in a haze of substance, she had married him. My parents flew out to Vegas to minimize the disaster. I was left behind, forced to deal with the gossip and chatter from everyone all over town. I shadowed my embarrassment and humiliation by downplaying the whole fiasco and pretending it was blown out of proportion. Inside, I was scared and unsure of how to manage. I felt abandoned. And like, that is kind of messed up. Why the hell did Lynn and Jamie have to fly to Vegas to deal with a decision that a grown woman made because they didn't want her to be married to Jason Alexander and they just abandoned Jamie Lynn? Like, now that is something I will be sympathetic to, because Britney is not your parent, Jamie Lynn. She owes you not jack shit. Not one damn thing does she owe you. Nothing. She's already given you way more than you deserve. And you've stolen the rest. Facts ain't defamation. Let's sort it out in depositions if you have a problem with it, sweetheart. Okay. What I will say is, Britney was not her mom, but her mom was her mom. And them leaving her to go handle some divorce situation, some annulment situation that they had no business dealing with, was abandonment. And that she does deserve to be upset about that, because her parents probably did abandon her many times to go stick their nose in Britney's business that they had no business sticking their nose in. Page 66, she starts talking about Sam Lutfi, who has also come out and called her a liar, and he has receipts. Now listen, I don't care what you think about Sam Lutfi. He was an eyewitness of the whole situation, upfront and personal. He has spoken to Jamie Lynn Spears. If I have to listen to Sam Lutfi or Jamie Lynn Spears and their words are disagreeing, I'm going with Sam Lutfi. Sam Lutfi exemplifies an insidious culture of people who use other people to leverage themselves. Okay, so she's describing Lou Taylor here, her bestie, okay? They prey on the vulnerable and impaired for their own gain, using anyone susceptible to their actions, Lou Taylor. And Britney was at her lowest when Sam came along. This is Lutfi. Sadly enough, Sam Lutfi continues to make outrageous claims from his time with my sister. Most recently, he tried to get Mama in on another one of his schemes. I have seen text messages between Jamie Lynn Spears and Sam Lutfi, and it is not how Jamie Lynn Spears is describing it. Page 67. So Jamie Lynn basically says Britney was spiraling, briefly mentions the conservatorship being enacted to protect Britney from Sam, which isn't a reason for a conservatorship. There is no box that they can check that says protect from person. That is what the temporary restraining order is for. We also just have so many different reasons for this conservatorship, right? Now, in Jamie Lynn Spears' book, she said it was to protect Britney from Sam Lutfi. But I heard with my own two ears Alex Weingarten, a.k.a. Big Sloppy, in court on January 19th say, let's not forget, Your Honor, why Britney was put into this conservatorship in the first place. It was because she was being, and I quote, irresponsible with her money. Now, both of those two things disagree with what the court documents actually say. And what the court documents actually say is that Britney got put into this conservatorship because they lied and said she had dementia. That is why she got put into the conservatorship according to the law. So we have Jamie Lynn Spears saying it was because of Sam Lutfi. We have Alex Weingarten, aka Big Sloppy, saying that it was because of being irresponsible with her money. And now you have the court papers that say it was because of dementia. So pick a freaking reason, you gang of hillbilly criminals. I'm saying hillbilly criminals because that's like a specific reference from some court documents. I didn't just make that up. Okay. So then we have chapter 5 called Pregnancy and Perception. Page 71. She read for a role in Twilight, and the audition process made her know that she wanted to move back to Louisiana. So she didn't like auditioning for Twilight, I guess. She probably just didn't get the part and was like, oh, boo, I'm not going to be able to act in Hollywood unless Dan Schneider makes a show for me, and then like ran away back home because she couldn't take it. Then page 83, Britney learned about this was interesting. So she says that the way that Britney Spears learned that Jamie Lynn was pregnant was through the media. And like, imagine, she's talking now, we just need to get rid of all these lawyers. We need to get rid of all the different people, and we need to come back together as a family. Okay, well, why didn't you tell your sister that you were pregnant? I was just a young girl. Okay, well, you weren't too young to fucking figure out how to make a baby, but you're too young to figure out how to call your sister? Okay. It caused Jamie Lynn pain, allegedly, that she couldn't tell Britney, but like, pick your freaking phone up. Yeah, okay. So then she starts talking about Lou Taylor. On page 87, she mentions Lou, and she mentions the word solvent, which is like a really weird thing to say to like an individual person. Like, Jamie Lynn, how are we going to keep you solvent? Like, it's just weird. Like, it's correct. Like, solvent means like, not bankrupt. Like, you have more assets than liabilities. That's what solvent means. But it's like almost like Jamie Lynn was trying to use a big word and she didn't really know what it meant, but she like wanted to put it in there to make it seem like she was like smart with money or something. 88. Jamie Lynn considered becoming emancipated from her parents because she wanted to start taking control of her life, her money, her things, because she had just gotten pregnant. And again, we see hypocrite Jamie Lynn Spears coming out and making exceptions for herself. Like, before she was even 18 years old, she wanted to be emancipated from James and Lynn Spears. But she can't understand why Britney didn't want her parents to have anything to do with her money. And she was like 25 years old at the time. It's this dissonance that it's like, I don't know if she's just in an echo chamber. She's just like, she's actually incapable of critical thought or compassion. I really don't know why she would be able to understand why she doesn't want her parents in her business, but it should be, Britney should just be totally okay with all of these idiots giving their unsolicited advice. I don't, if somebody could explain to me how someone arrives at a place where they can only understand things from their own perspective and they can't apply that to other people, like, I would love to know, because my mind does not work like that. Me and Jamie Lynn Spears are very different in the mental way. Okay. So then we go into chapter 6, breaking up and letting go. So interestingly, on page 95, Jamie Lynn comes out and says that she was becoming really close to Lou Taylor, and Lynn even kind of started to resent Lou Taylor because of the close relationship Jamie Lynn had with Lou. So that was very telling. And I bet you Lynn Spears cannot stand Lou Taylor, because she came in and wrecked their whole family. I mean, she did. It's facts ain't defamation. Let's sort it out in the depositions, Lou. Because you say I'm lying about you. Then Jamie Lynn sounds kind of like a lot. I noticed a lot of similarities between Jamie Lynn's book and Lynn Spears' book in the way that they describe Jamie. They describe him as an alcoholic, as an abuser, as a person who only cares about himself, as a person who is very emotionally unstable. They describe him as someone who was never there when they needed him. He would skip out on them. He would leave for days at a time. He would go on benders. So it's very similar to Lynn Spears' book. And I wonder if any of the same writers did participate. So Jamie Lynn ends up with a person just like her dad, as far as she describes it, named Casey Aldridge. But she never uses his name in the book. She only calls him Casper, which I think is weird. Like, everybody knows the guy's name is Casey, but so Casey's sister has actually done an interview on Popcorn Planet, a 2-part interview, and she comes out and says, like, she thinks that Jamie Lynn was trying to take some type of dig at Casey by calling him Casper, but the way that Jamie Lynn describes Casper in the book is the same as they describe Jamie, right? He is described as an addict, somebody who struggles with substance abuse, somebody who neglected and abandoned his child. Maddie, somebody who they described him as somebody who actually denied paternity of Maddie at the beginning of the whole thing. And so she really just drags this man. But his sister has come out and said, well, let me tell our part of the story, because this isn't true. So this is another person who's come out and said Jamie Lynn Spears is lying in her book, right? So now how many people do we have now? Britney, Alexa, Sam Lutfi. Again, Sam Lutfi on his own might not hold a lot of weight to you, but add everything else up. The sister, right? Oh, sorry, I forget her name. Aldridge Harvard. I forget her name. But she did an interview with Popcorn Planet recently, and she basically called Jamie Lynn Spears a total liar. So then at the end of chapter 6, Jamie Lynn Spears meets her current husband, Jamie Watson, through some of her friends. Okay, then chapter 7, which will be our last chapter that we discussed today, is called Butterfly Gets Her Wings. On page 130, Jamie Lynn mentions Lou again when talking about starting her music career, because acting, for whatever reason, just wasn't cutting it for her. And probably because she's a terrible actress, and the shows that she was on were given to, like, those roles that she was on as a child were given to her by Dan Schneider, who just liked her for whatever reason. And when she had to actually go out and get her own acting roles, she was not getting them, like for Twilight or whatever. I don't know. This is just me assuming. I really don't know. So then she was like, oh, Miss Lou has Nashville connections, so maybe I can start a singing career. And that flopped too. Have y'all ever heard of any one of her songs? Name one Jamie Lynn Spears song right now without Googling it. And Follow You from Zoey 101 don't count. So Jamie Lynn was kind of like dating that guy, Jamie Watson, but she wanted to start her music career. So she takes her baby and she moves to Nashville to start her music career. She broke up with Jamie Watson, who now she's married to, right? But at the time she had broken up with him. And she ended up getting back together with Maddie's father, Casey. And then Jamie shamed her and called her trash. So Jamie Watson, we have another Jamie. It's bad enough that there's Jamie Spears, Jamie Watson, Jamie Lynn Spears, right? So Jamie Watson, who is Jamie Lynn Spears' current husband as of 2022, Jamie Lynn broke up with him. And she got back with Maddie's father. She got back with her child's father, Casey, or AKA Casper. So when she gets back with Casper, Jamie Watson, who is now Jamie Lynn's husband, called her trash. Like, what the fuck? Why would you put that in the book? Like, There's some stuff I'm just like, why would you put this in the book? There's probably like 3 people that are still on your team, and he's one of them. And then on page 128, Lou suggested that Jamie Lynn Spears go in for therapy. Now that's like as far as I've gotten. I wanted to just do part 1 of the review. As you can tell, this video is already pretty lengthy. So I think I'm going to give my full thoughts on the whole book at the end of the next video. But so far, this is part 1. Thank you for joining. It's going to go up first on Patreon and then eventually make its way to YouTube. Facts ain't defamation. Love you, mean it. Okay, bye.